Hi. The bar is set really high up. I'll try to not to disappoint you too much. So as he said, my name is Marcin Napiórkowski. I'm a semiotician, so I basically deal with science and stories and codes and narratives. And very often I work with science people. I mean science, not social science like me. And my job is usually like this, that I get a large corpus of data, for example, on what common people think of GMOs. And then the data gets initially sorted by computer using simple algorithms like latent Dirichlet allocation or similar ones. And then I read a representative part of every topic, and I decide what are the dominant patterns, and it's super boring. So I won't tell you about that today, but instead I will start by telling you a story. Why are you laughing? You should be crying. It's a super sad story. One of the saddest stories I've... Oh, now you bet. You didn't really react to that. No. Because hypothesis number one, people don't react to charts and diagrams. But let me tell you the story behind this story, and then you will see that what you see on the lower right corner is the most sad thing you've seen for a long time. So the guy names is Elliot. I don't really know the family name, but I know the initials EVR. And he became famous in scientific literature because he had a particularly bad luck. He was an accountant in a small company, wife, 2 or 3 kids, a happy life, and then he started having a vision problems and went to a doctor, and the doctor said, bad news and good news. Bad news, it's cancer. Good news, it's nothing really serious. We can just remove it and you will be back to normal in like 3 days. And they have operated on him, removing a tiny tumor from his frontal lobe, and then the old Elliot was gone. Like everything stayed exactly the same. He was smart, he was funny, he was witty, but he didn't care at all. Like he became worst possible husband, cheating on his wife and not caring about children. She signed divorce papers and he was alone. And then he became a really, really bad accountant, doing everything like, yeah, I don't care. Then he invested all his money, he was an accountant. He invested all his money with a guy who was obviously a fraud, but promised a lot of return, and he lost all his money. He ended up living again on his parents' farm, and he didn't even go out from bed many times. He was like, nah, what should I wear today? Or how should I know, comb my hair? And he lost something. So his friends and family took him to a doctor, and they ran all possible tests. And they all said, everything's okay with him. The important parts of the brain are intact. Guy is intelligent. He can tell you what will happen, and he just don't care. He totally don't care about the future. And then, luckily for him, he came to a group of neuroscientists who invented this new test, which is quite famous because Malcolm Gladwell mentioned the test in one of his books, Iowa Gambling Task. You're familiar with that? Basically, that's the picture presenting it. Imagine you have 4 sets of cards, but these are not like regular cards, playing cards, but like Monopoly cards. You get $100, you've just lost $1,000, okay? $20 plus, $30 minus. And A and B are bad decks. You have huge benefits, but the losses are much bigger. And C and D are good decks. So you don't have huge bonuses, but the losses are much, much lower. So in the long run, it makes total sense to use only decks C and D. And this is exactly what normal controls, so people like you and me, were doing. After trying A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, then they've tried A and B because the rewards were bigger, but then regular people ended up using only C and D because we are smart. We know the consequences. What's fascinating is when they were measuring reactions like the skin reactions, the temperature rise, pressure, people were aware that the decks A and B are evil even before they were able to verbalize it. So we have this incredible skill in anticipating the future and making right choices. This is the sad part of the story. These are the choices made by Elliot, our protagonist. He failed Iowa gambling task. Again and again and again, he was trying the bad decks because he thought, well, maybe this time it will be better. Maybe this time it will be better. And why am I telling you this story? First, because I think it's a cool story. Second, because this is exactly what we are doing with global warming. This is exactly what we are doing with agriculture and energy as a society. Like, we all know that the temperature is rising. We all know that we need this bloody rainforest. We all know that we need to have clean sources of energy. And yet, we're taking A and B, the bad decks, quick gains, fully aware of what's going to happen. So somehow we all suffer the same stuff as Elliot do, but everything is okay with our brains. The problem is not with brains. The problem is not with hardware. The problem is with software, because we have fascinating data that demonstrate that each and every of us is also a subject to very similar processes on a larger scale, but they are determined not by a presence or absence of certain part of our frontal lobe, but by narratives. Narratives are vehicles of anticipation that in everyday life make us to perform Iowa gambling task again and again every day. We make simulations in our minds, we share them with other people, and we decide on future scenarios based on the stories we have. And today, I would like to give you a quick overview of most important elements of narratives. How do they work? How can they be vehicles of anticipation? And why bad narratives can cause us to take cards from very bad decks, and how good narratives can steer us back to the right, reasonable path and save our life, our marriages, our climate. And there are three elements that are very peculiar for narratives that are the basis of what I will be talking about today. So first, as I've already mentioned, we have great research on that narratives are basically vehicles of anticipation. And by the way, research done on subjects like Elliot shows that they have significant problems with understanding narratives because they remember the facts, but they don't see the sequences. And this is the first element that I will be focusing on today. The second one is even more important. Narratives are vehicles of empathy. By telling a story from a point of view of the other, we make the other a subject, not an object. And we are able to do something which is exceptional for our species, to simulate the point of view of the other. And this has everything to do with climate. This has everything to do with what we've just heard about Africa and Ukraine, because this is how narratives define our borders of solidarity. And the third point is even more important than empathy, because the world is surprisingly complex, and we are surprisingly simple. We crave for simple answers. And again, we have a lot of research on that. I won't quote to you my favorite experiment here, maybe next time, about how the illusion of explanatory depth, so our belief that things are simple and we are smart enough to grab all of them, drives a lot of really bad choices in our life. But basically, this is true. The best narrative you can ever get are the user's manuals from IKEA. Super simple pictures demonstrating you what to do, what not to do. And this is what we will be looking for. But as I will show you today, narratives are our primary tool of simplifying the world, but cleverly used, they also demonstrate our ability to grasp really complex matter. And these three dimensions may be roughly translated to three elements of every narrative. So every narrative consists of some structure. One thing happens after another and they make sense. If not, it's not a narrative. It's a random set of pictures, for example. By the way, our brains tend to see narratives even in random sets of pictures. Code, so these are colors and people and places and metaphors and wording. All of this is a code. And last but not least, we have narrative communities and media. So everything that enables us to share narratives, to build empathy, to create a community around narratives. And today, I will mention briefly the most important elements of each of these dimensions, starting with structure, obviously, because this is like, where we should start. And for those of you who, like myself, are really into hard facts and data, narrative is not just a random set of words or pictures, because we also can have visual narrative. Every narrative, if it is truly a narrative, because not every text is a narrative, like 10 Commandments. Cool, but not a narrative. Every narrative is a mathematical function, which basically means that a value changes over time. It can also change when you move from a place to place or whatever. I will simplify it to a value changing over time, but you can see how, for example, a map can be easily translated to narrative when you move from Europe to Africa, for example, or show a changing climate zones. Let's take a simple example here, like from rags to riches. We have a poor guy who started his first business, cleaning shoes, then selling shoes, and now he's a major manufacturer. This is a story of Uncle Scrooge from the DuckTales. You remember the Disney guy? Or Elon Musk or whatever. This is, by the way, modeled on the diagram showing the net worth of Elon Musk, not just random data. So a value here is billions of dollars or millions of dollars or whatever dollars, and another axis is time. We can have a different narrative. For example, two friends from childhood. They went different ways, one to one school, one to another, different neighborhoods, different friends, and then they start to realize that they don't like each other so much. Then one of them votes for Liberal Party and another one for more right-wing party. They start to hate each other guts, and they end up, very low. It's like, I don't know, Vandana Shiva and Mark Linus, or whatever. If you've seen a lot of these dramas, yeah? I don't want to oversimplify things too much, but when you realize that these are basically simple mathematical functions, it's very easy to categorize them. So first dominant narrative today, and when you think about ecology, is totally number one, is a narrative of degradation, the fall. World used to be better. We have cleaner rivers, we have cleaner earth, we used to have, sorry. And now everything is worse. What's crucial is everything. Like when we use this narrative as a master narrative, as this so-called great narrative, it tends to have this every in the story. So the problem is that a lot of things used to be better, but a lot not. So when you are a declared environmentalist and this is your credo, you tend to overlook everything that actually got better, like technological solutions to your problems. So Donald Trump and Vandana Shiva and your local producer of food using his grandma in commercials, they all use this narrative. But the main counter narrative is equally simple. It's a naive narrative of progress, that everything is getting better, and okay, maybe we have some minor fluctuations, but basically, we're totally safe. We don't have to worry, we don't have to panic, because technology is getting better and better every day, so I don't really have to quit smoking, because they will invent cancer cure and I will be immortal. Anyway, you get the point, yeah? We have two more complex narratives, and this is my personal favorite. So if you will ask me, so don't ask this question after the lecture, which narrative structure is the best, which one we should use, the crisis one. This is the fairy tale, basically. So there was a happy kingdom, and one day a dragon appeared, and everything, went to ashes, but then there was this brave princess, and she went for a journey, and she saved the world. This is our narrative, like Armageddon with Bruce Willis. That's my favorite example, as you remember from previous photo conferences, okay? Whenever we show challenge, we not only demonstrate that the situation is dire, but we also immediately point to possible solutions. So challenge should be a number one pick for us. And by the way, congratulations on doing exactly that on this beautiful stripes graphic. This is this narrative. And immediately, I'm familiar with the stripes, but we have a turning point here, okay? And the hope. So this is how you can do great visual narratives. We don't need words to present this. Congratulations, yeah. Man, job well done, really. The problem is, there is equally attractive counter-narrative for that. And if you will listen carefully to a lot of European politicians right now, to a lot of American politicians right now, they will say, no, we're not stupid enough to believe in decline or progress in a simple form. But we believe in Oswald Spengler or Samuel Huntington. We have the civilizations that have rise and fall, and it's a natural cycle. And now everything will only go down because we're past the point of, our noon. And this is very attractive. And it really tricks people into believing that there is nothing we could do. And if the Earth is doomed, the best thing we can do is to take a pole position in a race for the last glass of water. It's only smart to do that, a Mad Max scenario. And funny thing is that we have one more narrative. It seems super not attractive, like nothing changes. But recently, analyzing TV commercials and New York Times bestseller list and stuff, this became super popular. Like every technology is a trade-off. What really matters, our humanity, who we are, doesn't change. So really, no technology could be a solution, or lack of technology is also not a solution. It doesn't matter. The truth is only inside you. It's a funny narrative, look for it. Yeah, it is. A lot of mysticism in that. And what's fascinating is that we are totally capable of tracing two mathematical functions simultaneously. To see, for example, that there were two guys who were friends and started with no money, but great friendships. Then they started business, and at some point, they've started getting more and more money, but they've lost their trust and friendship. This chart is modeled on the episode of Netflix TV series Toys That Made Us, and this is a chart presenting guys who invented Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles. By the way, I never make up my data, it's always real. So we're totally capable to track two functions simultaneously and to see, okay, one thing is going up, second thing is going down, can we have a better solution? We see the good thing and we see the price. Can we have a better solution? This is how narrative can help us to think multidimensionally, however. And if you ever read one of these huge 19th century novels, you know that we're capable of tracing like 20 functions simultaneously. Or if you read Games of Thrones, you know we can do 120. And if you watch any of telenovelas, like, remember this one? Da 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 da, like 5,000 at last. She was his mother, but then she lost memory and she was kidnapped and got face. You remember the episode? Face transfer, and he thought he's lost fiancée, and fascinating story. We can do that. We can do that in bad things like telenovelas, but we can do this in good things like let's sit down and compare different dimensions of different source of electricity or crops. And you may ask, so if a value changes in time, what is the value we should track? What is the value we should use as a prime thing in our narratives? And obviously the rule follow the money is very tempting because sometimes it works, like for example when you ask where Gerhard Schroeder is working now. But you can cheat your tax services. You can, fool your mom and your dad. The only thing you cannot fool is the rule of conservation of energy. And this is the only rule that always works. So if we are to go into the deepest depth of the stories, we should start with energy. We should follow energy. And we should teach people to follow energy in their narratives. We should teach history lessons. Not that, well, this medieval kingdom fell apart probably because there was this king and there was this war and there was this dynasty. No! Follow the energetic density of the wood they had. And now the forest was gone. So they had nothing, to create the energy supplies. It's way better than kings and dynasties and media and communication. I see that I don't have a lot of time left, so let me summarize this very briefly. That's part of the presentation. I invented it 3 days ago when I started rehearsals, okay? Don't ruin it. So let me put it very briefly in 3 points. Point number 1, polarization seems like a great idea. So when I know I am right, I have this nice feeling that, whoa, I'm the good guy, there are the bad guys, so I should destroy them. The best thing to do is to wipe them out from the surface of Earth. Because, facts are mine, I am right, and you know what, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, it never works. And the results are even worse than you think, because in highly polarized situations, we have good research, especially on politics, smart people from both camps, believe me or not, there are smart people in both camps, always, are marginalized, and the most radical ones, even in your camp, will take over. And the only organizations that really long-term benefit from polarizations are Twitter and Facebook and social media, and tabloids. Ecology will never benefit from polarization. So building bridges, not trenches, is super important. It's difficult because I know we've mentioned the topic for like 3 times already, so let's address the elephant in the room, the gay people. I don't know, I ate a lot of GMO stuff, I'm not gay myself, but I'm super pro-family. So when I have my gay friends, I'm totally like, hey, I'm pro-family, they should have marriage like I do. And for me, that's part of my conservative agenda. Like, hey, I have marriage, you should have marriage too. So I really don't understand why anybody would be against gay marriages. But when a guy who is against gay marriages wants with me to talk about nuclear energy in Poland, this is a totally right time and place to talk about nuclear energy in Poland. And maybe, just maybe, it will be also an opportunity for me to give him an opportunity to meet my gay friends, okay? And I learned a lot working with conservatives who also care about our planet. And this is difficult because we live in a time when, you know, the drive to don't talk with this guy because he's against this or that is super strong. And here we probably have a very uniform audience, but I know a lot of people who are very into combating global warming, but they are super skeptical about some parts of my own beliefs, like GMOs, for example. We don't have to solve every problem at once, but involving them in solving one of the problems may be the greatest opportunity imaginable to learn something mutually, for example, about GMOs. The second thing is we are really great in telling stories that are about us personally, one-man show. We are pretty capable of expanding this empathy to our family, our tribe. And now we learned a lot since the invention of printing press about how to think in terms of solidarity with our country. So let's vaccinate everybody in Poland, because this is Poland and we should be, I know, feel this solidarity with other fellow Polish people. But this is not how reality works anymore. So, for example, if everybody in Poland really got vaccinated and we left the whole Africa unvaccinated, without any help, without our support, it's not a thing of morality. The virus will keep mutating and it will get back to us and it will kill us all. So there will be no secret hiding place. There will be no Noah's Ark anymore. Either we all survive or nobody survives. Humanity is our new tribe. And this is the way we should shape our stories, the only reasonable way. And the last thing is, I love fact checkers. I do some fact checking myself, and I really enjoy working with the organizations that do that. But fact checking is never enough. So showing that your data is wrong, this is wrong, doesn't work. I will show you later why. But we need fact telling. So we need nice stories to convey our facts. And whenever I work with science people, they are like, nah, they have stories, the charlatans, they have stories. We have facts, we have data. And I've seen your reaction to my data. Nobody cared about my data. But after I told you Elliot's story, I've seen your faces. Like, whoa, this is tragic. And the better data we have, the more urgent and serious are our facts, the more we should care about our stories, not the other way around. Because our brain does not simply accept facts. Our brain uses stories as a carrier for facts, and the sooner we accept it, the better. And the code. The thing with the code is that it's extremely complicated, and majority of my work is decoding the codes. And for example, I work with this organization that is named pretty similar, like Reimagine Europe, Re-Europe, cool, we're going to sue you. And we had this huge analysis of social perception of new genome editing technologies in various European countries. And I had hundreds and hundreds of papers, from scientific papers to tabloids, about GMOs, and we have sorted them into different narratives. And then I have analyzed the pictures that accompany them. And I realized that there is a difference in color palette. And I was able to predict with like a 90% probability whether it was a pro-GMO or anti-GMO paper based on the colors that were used in pictures. To make a long story short, anti-GMO activists were using a lot of photographs, green, dark shades of brown, and so on. the scientists who were pro-GMO were using a lot of infographics, and cyan was a dominant color of a palette, also a lot of pictures of sky, I don't know why, and sun. So there were differences in color palettes. You see how deep it goes. We have archetypes, we have a lot of stuff. Today I would like to tell you about something that is not really tangible. And I started with mathematical functions, and I will finish up with metaphors. And I don't know if you're familiar with this experiment. At first it was pretty contested, then I've seen some attempts to reproduce this experiment in different environments, and it worked, kind of. The story is, there is a group of people like you, they all got a mock-up report about crime in an invented city of Addison. And they all got exactly same data charts and tables. The only difference is that in the introduction, one group gets the information that a virus of crime has infected our city, and another one has a metaphor stating that the beast of crimes is ravaging in our city. And then people were asked whether you prefer, what measures do you prefer to combat this problem of crime? And there was a statistically significant difference between two groups. People that were primed or framed with virus were much more tending to analyze the social roots and work with community, while those primed with beast metaphor were like, we should arrest and combat and, war on drugs, basically. And when people were asked, why? Why have you chosen to work with community? Everybody was like, it's from the data, it's here. And don't you think you were primed with the metaphor? I didn't even read the first page. I didn't remember that it was about virus. This is how metaphors work. They prime us very strongly, and we're not even aware how they work. So, and this was also important because these metaphors were not made up by the researchers. The virus was taken from one study in Chicago organized by the Democratic Party, and the beast was taken from the war on crime since Nixon and Reagan. So these are the metaphors that are actually really shaping American perception of crime. And we see that they work. And think about it. Next time you will write something about crisis and climate. And let me give you a nice example. The vaccine. It was also used today that we were incredibly fast with getting the vaccine. And we were all using this metaphor, racing the disease. And I was the first one to do that. I was like, it's incredible how science got really quick. And we should, expect to wait like 20 years, but, 12 months. And then I analyzed a huge corpus of data on anti-vax movement. And what was the main concern? What was the main metaphor? It's too fast. It's too quick. It was like some stupid race. And who gave them this metaphor? I did. Not personally, but people like me. So this is how caring, clever, I don't know, we should be with our metaphors. And what's even more important is that negation doesn't work. So whenever, you're familiar with the book? Don't Think of an Elephant? Yeah, so I'm not repeating the book here, but basically what Democrats were doing for many years in the US were taking the terms coined by the Republicans, like taxes are burden, and saying, it is not true that taxes are burden. This is not how it works. Negation doesn't work. I hope not always, because this sentence is kind of negation, but yeah. Basically, when we see don't think of an elephant, we think about an elephant, and when we hear crime is not like a beast, we hear crime is a beast. So whenever you hear that GMO is like Jurassic Park, a dominant metaphor, don't use it. Don't say, no, it's not like Jurassic Park, it's totally different. Think of something yourself. We need to coin our language, because right now we're defensive. Right now we're saying don't think of an elephant all the time. And what is cool about that is that our mind is capable of incredible things. And if I can ask you for help, can anybody say like a totally random thing? It should be tangible and I should know what it is. An animal, an item, an activity. Coconut. Okay, so when I was thinking about metaphors, I told you that I started rehearsing like 3 days ago. I was looking for a metaphor to explain you how metaphors work. And I thought like the metaphors are like coconut. First, you know that coconut is a huge killer. Like people got actually killed by coconuts because they are heavy, they fall from the trees, but nobody thinks about coconuts as dangerous things. So metaphors are like coconut because they can kill you, especially when you sleep under the tree. And this is what we are doing. So be cautious about metaphor. But it's more. It's about layers. So metaphor is hard on a surface. When you first think coconut, you cannot do anything with that. What can you possibly do with a coconut? But then you open it, and inside is really nutritious, and your brain craves metaphors like a coconut. When you get through the shell, you get something that is really nutritious and tasty. And what's more, you don't really eat coconuts being here. You use coconut flavor. Metaphors catch up. Then it gives flavor to all the coconut things without real coconut. So this is how metaphors work. And very often, people want to pay me money for finding great, perfect metaphor for something. I always take the money because I like money. That's kind of the person I am. But the thing is, it's not really like you need to find a perfect metaphor and look for ages for that. Sometimes you need to be brave and take a thing and expand on it. You know how long it took me to come up with the coconut metaphor? Like 0.6 seconds. And this is what you do. Be brave, fight for that, and let's save the world together. Thank you.